All right, guys, Tuesday edition of the show about to get cracking. Give the show a like and a share. Hammer that like button for us. We work hard for you, putting this show together. The only thing we ask in return is you liking the show, sharing the show, and participating in the show. Goobers, Carol Thorpe, goobers. Last Tuesday we had a fantastic show about goobers. No goobers today, unfortunately. I would like goobers, though. Carol Thorpe, good afternoon.
My heart is breaking.
Judah Wickhauer with goobers as well. His heart is breaking. You want to get, we put in studio there? Is that a good spot for studio cam? I'm cool if you want to try it out that way, if you want to post it next to the banner. That could be a cool spot. Scott Aaronworth, what's up, homie? Welcome to the program. King of Virginia Beach. A talented Esquire of tremendous proportions. Today's show is going to be good. So here's a statistic for you. Charlottesville City Schools. How many school buses do you think are active right now with the Charlottesville City school system, public school system? 7 of 40. Judah, 7 of 40? That's less than 20%?
That's down a little bit.
That's meager, right?
I mean, I don't even know how you go about continuing like that.
We're going to talk about the challenges that public schools face. Are the headwinds, Judah, the challenges for public schools more significant now than ever before? I mean, don't get me wrong. Segregation was a serious problem for public schools, a serious problem. And the challenges that public schools have now, school bus driver shortages, teacher shortages, student enrollment dropping, the collateral damage of the pandemic, technology is significantly behind private schools at public schools. Public schools have turned into a political war ground.
I think technology is going to be a big problem for a lot of sectors in the coming years.
Yeah. Can we make a legitimate argument, viewers and listeners, that the challenges that the public school systems face now are the most significant in the history of public schools in Virginia? I'll ask that question as a potential theme of today's show. Are the challenges of the public school system today the most significant challenges the Virginia public school system, the Charlottesville public school systems have ever faced? That topic on today's show. Apple is laying people off, and Travis Hackworth has got us thinking again. Southern Virginia has created a brand, SOVE, S-O-V-E, the Southern Virginia brand, as municipalities and jurisdictions and towns and cities in Southern Virginia join forces, pool resources, pool money to drive people to a forgotten portion of the Commonwealth. And SOVE, the Southern Virginia brand, has a great ring to it. More on that and more on the Tuesday edition of the I Love CVille show with Alex Erpia on today's program as well. Judah, we can rock and roll when you're ready.
Quiet on the set.
Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you kindly for joining us. A glorious Tuesday in downtown Charlottesville. Our studio's right off the downtown mall in historic CVille, but our audience is Central Virginia-wide, Commonwealth-wide, country-wide, and worldwide on the I Love CVille network. Today's show presented by Skooma Boutique Dispensary. The best dispensary in Charlottesville is a 2-store dispensary with locations on the downtown mall and on Ellwood Avenue, locally owned and operated Skooma Boutique Dispensary. Guys, today's show is dynamite. We're going to talk challenges of the public school system in Charlottesville, Virginia. We have a city in Charlottesville that is monikered or billed or branded as a world-class city. And we have world-class amenities, world-class advantages, and with the University of Virginia in our backyard, we have protection and insulation from macro recessionary trends and turns of events. Charlottesville and Central Virginia, by all accounts, is a phenomenal place to live. You could make a legitimate argument, and many media outlets have, that Seville, frankly, is one of the best places to live in the country. We've all seen the rankings, we've all seen the lists, we've seen the media outlets make that argument. They've pointed to the breweries, the vineyards, the restaurants, the music, the outdoors, the ACC sports, the mountain biking, the hiking. They've highlighted the downtown mall, the locally owned shops, the quirky retail boutiques, and the hotels. But folks, can you truly be a world-class city if your public school system is in potential trouble? I want to ask you that question, genuinely and sincerely. Can you be a world-class city if 7 of your 40 school buses are active? Just 7. Can you be a world-class city if public school enrollment is dropping and dropping quickly? Can you be a world-class city if teachers, they're quitting and they're sprinting for the exit? Can you be a world-class city if a public school voucher program is going to further threaten your enrollment levels? Can you be a world-class city if the public school education is significantly behind the pay-for-play education? That topic on today's show. I'm going to ask you that question. How can the town and the city we love be world-class if the next generation is struggling to learn in a classroom? Why are only 7 of 40 school buses active? Why are students being asked to navigate precarious intersections like the one on High Street by Riverside Lunch, Jack and Jill's, La Michoacana, and Fabio's Pizza? Elementary school students, kids that are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, are walking further than ever before because the public school system doesn't have the human capital to get the students to school on school buses. I'm going to take a really deep dive with you, the viewer and listener, on this topic to lead the show. We're also going to highlight what we think is a phenomenal regional marketing campaign, the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance. You are seeing towns and cities and municipalities and jurisdictions in southwestern Virginia pool their resources, their skill sets, and their marketing dollars to create a new brand. And that new brand is SOVA, S-O-V-A, Southern Virginia. There is no better time to market and to brand and to advertise the amenity-rich environment of Southern Virginia than right now, as men and women and as families look for new places to live with the advantages of remote work. So much to cover on today's program, including Judah Wickower and I chatting chicken wings. Yes, chicken wings. They're delicious. Some people like flats. I like drumsticks. Some people like ranch dressing. I personally do. Judah strikes me as a blue cheese guy. Some people want celery sticks with their chicken wings. Some people just want the wings themselves, and the more the merrier. Where are the best chicken wings in Charlottesville? All those topics and more, including Alex Erpy in about 15 minutes on today's program. Let's go to the two-shot. Let's welcome Judah to the show. Judah, first, good afternoon. Second, 7 of 40 school buses active on roads with students returning back to the classroom. Where do you want to begin with the public school topic on today's program? Because I think it's a very, 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 very good one.
I mean, it's obviously a big problem, but it's more than, I think there are a lot of different reasons why they're having issues. I mean, you've got the pay. I can't imagine that the pay is all that high.
The pay is awful for a school bus driver.
Then you've got, I mean, how many people did they lose? We personally know of at least one person who is no longer working as a bus driver because he had a disagreement with the school district.
Because of vaccination requirements, Earl Smith of Scottsville.
So, I mean, how many bus drivers did they lose because of that? And in
How many
fact-
bus drivers did they lose just because bus drivers don't want to be in a tin can with kids during a pandemic?
Yeah,
Right?
definitely.
And let's highlight MJ Arquette, the queen of marketing. Welcome to the program. She says, "What's up, J Squared and Alex Erpy?" We'll highlight the overall theme of the show. Can we be a world-class city if the public school system is in
Disrepair.
disrepair? Can we be a world-class system if the public school system, a world-class city, if the public school system has 7 of 40 school buses on the road? If the public school system is seeing public school enrollment dropping and dropping quickly? Remember, enrollment numbers determine the funding from the Commonwealth. If your public school enrollment drops, you get less money to run that school. Can we be a world-class city if teachers are sprinting for the exits, for new careers and jobs at private schools? And can we be a world-class city if the public school system has turned into a political war ground, a battle where Youngkin beat McCullough, the public school system war ground? All fair questions.
Yeah.
All
I
fair
mean,
questions.
I think the teacher problem is probably very similar to the bus driver problem.
For me, the biggest problem is the drop in enrollment. Enrollment is dropping at public schools.
I mean,
People are sprinting
hardly
to private
surprising.
schools.
or just to teach at home.
I don't think the teaching at home is as prevalent as it used to be. When it comes down to it, parents need some time away from their children.
They definitely do.
I mean, take your friends, our friends, Anwar and Laura. They were going to go build their own school at one point.
Yep, they were doing teaching pods, weren't they?
Yeah.
With Anwar taking teaching duties for a lot of the kids.
And they realized immediately how big of a challenge that was.
I haven't heard more about
I
it
don't think it's
since,
happening anymore.
Well, it's certainly not as necessary as it was back then.
Remember the teaching pods during the pandemic when we were talking about how neighborhoods with their parents were going to pool schools together in cul-de-sacs and in parking lots and in driveways and in back decks and front yards and backyards and side yards during the pandemic? What is the biggest challenge faced by the public school system, in your personal opinion? I'm asking you, the viewer and listener. Is it the school bus driver shortage? Is it the teacher shortage? Is it the student enrollment dropping? Is it the post-pandemic collateral damage? Is it the private school voucher program? Is it technology being far behind the private school competitors? Is it the political war ground of the public school system where politicians are leveraging schools and systems to win campaigns? What is the biggest concern for you? Because enrollment is dropping, and it's dropping quickly. And what are the most dangerous intersections for people, for students walking to school?
I'm sure Charlottesville has a lot of them.
Dude, my kid, who would want their kid walking, and there's a Twitter account for this intersection, the High Street by Riverside, Fabio's, Jack and Jill's, La Michoacana, that corridor, there's a lot of homes around there, a lot of houses. And the price point of those houses often creates and breeds young families because the price points are some of the manageable ones in the city. We're not talking North Downtown, we're not talking Rugby, we're not talking that high dollar neighborhood off of Barracks Road, we're not talking Belmont, we're talking smaller homes.
Yeah, all the homes fronting Meade.
Exactly.
A lot of those side streets.
You know the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're smaller homes.
Smaller homes for families.
Mm-hmm.
So many kids. Who wants their kid walking down High Street to get to school? What are some other ones that jump to mind? You know the roads as well as anyone.
I mean, Charlottesville does not have optimized anything, I don't think.
I mean, the High Street quarter has no sidewalks. Limited sidewalks, not
got
continuous sidewalks.
It's got some sidewalk.
Not continuous.
Yeah.
Not continuous. And that road's a major cut through from the people living on Pantops to get to downtown.
It's the only, well, not the only cut through, but yeah.
It's one of the main ones. You could take the bypass to some of the other exits like Park Street if you'd like to do that.
If you're coming down Pantops, you certainly wouldn't pass High Street.
Right.
And continue
Because
going
you'd be driving further.
to Locust or Park.
Exactly. Another question for you, and this is a very frank and real question. Why are the intersections that are the most dangerous for our children in the neighborhoods that are not the wealthiest? Take your wealthy neighborhoods around town. There's no what dangerous intersections exist in a wealthy neighborhood in town? City of Charlottesville only. Think North Downtown. Think Rugby. Think Greenbrier. What dangerous intersection exists in wealthy neighborhoods in the city of Charlottesville? Give me one. Please. Now compare and contrast that to High Street, not wealthy area. Compare and contrast that to the Ridge neighborhood, not wealthy, dangerous intersections there. Compare and contrast that to some of the neighborhoods around Cherry, dangerous intersections everywhere there. Compare and contrast that to 10th and Page, dangerous intersections there. Let's get to comments. Carol Thorpe, we love when you watch the program. Neil Williamson, the king of content, says, important note, Charlottesville school bus system is managed by Charlottesville Area Transit, not the schools. That's a fantastic point right there. Yeah. Here's another point I'd like to make. Why don't we unify transportation in Central Virginia? I continue to emphasize this because I'm a small business owner and I understand vertical integration and economies of scale. Can anyone explain to me why we have Charlottesville Area Transit, University Transit Services, Jaunt? Why do we have Albemarle County Public Schools, Charlottesville Public? Put it all under one damn umbrella and unify the back end and create a regional transportation brand that shuttles kids and adults alike. You think that's a pipe dream?
No, it's not that I think it's a pipe dream. It's just you make it sound like it's the simplest thing to take four disparate businesses and just say, hey, one of you needs to be in control and the rest of you can go F.
The alternative is they die the death of 1,000 cuts. Can anyone make a legitimate argument that Charlottesville Area Transit, CAT, is in a good position right now? The answer is no. CAT doesn't make money.
They can afford those fancy wraps.
They afford those fancy wraps because of our tax dollars. And I know that's tongue-in-cheek from you there, Judah Wickower. Is there any transportation system in Central Virginia that is in a good spot? That's a legitimate question for anyone watching this program. And I don't include Uber as a transportation system.
No.
Do you?
No.
Right? Do you imagine if they unified the brands, they can roll out a super dope app under that brand because they have consolidated money and resources? If they unified the brands, they'd have the same infrastructure and back-end office. If they rolled out the brands, you can build an advertising campaign that's more unified, approachable, clear-cut. You can improve the crappy bus stops around the area that often just include a worn-down bench with no cover from the inclement weather. How many bus stops have you guys seen around there, around here?
Okay, but how would revamping and unifying the system give them the money to make better bus stops?
Because you'd be pulling your resources. I mean, it's the same way we're running this business here. We're running this business lean, under one office, and how many companies we're running out of here? How many rentals are we managing? There's 24 tenants on our roster. 24. An advertising agency, a podcasting network, business brokerage, lean. Let's get to comments. And they're coming in fast today, Judah Wickower. Janice Boyce Trevelyan has this. They are contracting teachers with recruiters in Richmond, paying them a lot more than regular tenured teachers. They say they can pay more because they aren't doing benefits, but the overhead for school systems, it's crazy. Pay the teachers more. That was my beef with the gender-neutral bathrooms. My beef with the gender-neutral bathrooms is not that there's gender-neutral bathrooms. My beef is the use of money going to the gender-neutral bathrooms instead of the teachers themselves. If the teachers quit the public schools, it doesn't matter if you have gender-neutral bathrooms. You're not going to have teachers to teach kids. And the ones that are left over will be overworked because they're going to have more kids in their classroom than ever before.
But that's a constant struggle. I mean, we saw that with the how are we going to get $75 million to fix up these school buildings? We're always going to need money for changes and for teachers and for bus drivers and for, it's a balancing act of how you make it all work, if you can make it work. It's clearly, they're clearly having some troubles getting all the pieces to fit these days.
I mean, here's how you fix the problem. Want to know how you fix the problem?
Shoot.
It's pretty straightforward. Pay the teachers more money. You pay the teachers more money, you get more talent teaching the kids. But you get more talent teaching the kids don't leave.
But isn't that the left-wing talking point?
You're saying that's the liberal talking point?
Yes, spend more money.
I'm not saying spend more money.
You just said spend more money.
I'm saying spend money appropriately and accordingly and with accountability.
Yeah, but it's
spending money on gender-neutral bathrooms, just hypothetical, rolling out gender-neutral bathrooms for the Charlottesville public school system, that's going to cost millions of dollars. All the bathrooms, gender-neutral, public school system, Charlottesville, millions of dollars. Instead of spending the dollars that way, give it to teachers so they don't leave. Because it's pretty clear-cut to me, if the talented teachers leave, the students are going to follow. And if the students follow, enrollment drops and the school systems get less funding.
I mean, is it really that clear-cut? I mean, are kids just going to leave the school? I'm sure that a lot of parents don't have the latitude to just be like, oh, well, we're going to take our kids somewhere
Not
else.
so fast, my friend.
Okay, you're going to talk about school vouchers.
The voucher system, where Youngkin's administration is going to value a year at public school and say if you don't want to go to the public school because of concerns of curriculum or how your kids are being taught, you can take this check from us, the Commonwealth, and go find a private school. And while the value of a year at public school may not cover the entire year of private school, it's going to cover a good chunk.
Okay, well, following that, is it time to just subsidize all kids going to private schools?
If you subsidize all kids going to private schools, that would be the end of public schools as we know it.
Yeah? Is that a problem?
The end of public schools? I mean, I can't even wrap my mind around how folks would respond to that.
I mean, I'm not advocating for this, but you're basically saying that public schools are screwing up and losing students and not paying teachers enough. Maybe it's time to get rid of them. I mean, you're basically saying that students are leaving in droves. Why would we make them continue going to those schools?
Because I think for so long, public schools have taken things for granted.
Okay, but that's
and
not
for
really
so
an answer.
long, public schools have been like, we do it this way, and we're not going to change. And then guess what happened? We had a black swan event.
I know.
We had COVID.
I know that.
And then moms and dads looked at how their kids were learning with more scrutiny than ever before. And during COVID, you saw families on the financial margin and families that otherwise would never have considered private school, putting their kids in those scenarios. And they did it because private schools were learning business as usual. It's not a good situation right here. I want to get to some comments coming in from the viewer and listenership here on today's program. Vanessa Parkhill, the Queen of Earlysville, says, maybe it's time to do a deep dive into reasons families are leaving public schools. That's a great comment, Vanessa Parkhill. Maybe it's time we take a deep dive into reasons why families are leaving public schools. I can give you some of the reasons.
Well, you have been, and that's why I asked my question, however rhetorical it was supposed to be. Why are we continuing to prop up public schools if all of your arguments are that they're no longer a lot of things, no longer...
Because shouldn't education be, in a lot of ways, a public utility?
Okay, but...
Shouldn't education be, in a lot of ways, available to the masses in as quality form and fashion as possible? And
which is why I mentioned subsidizing private schools.
Well, that's what they're thinking about doing. But here's the problem with that approach. There's not enough private schools to handle the demand as is. You try to get into a private school locally, you're on a waiting list. My kid, my wife and I's son, fantastic little boy, is a rising pre-K4. At the end of this month, he starts the year before kindergarten, pre-K4. We're now thinking public school or private school for him in kindergarten. For us to even have a shot of getting in the private schools, I'm not even talking money. You have to do the tours now, like literally right now, for enrollment at the end of August 2023. 13 months in advance. You have to do the private school tours. And the chances or likelihood of you getting in a private school, slim and far between. Private school is a for-profit business. How many private schools will, when they're already at max capacity, they're at max capacity right now, how many private schools are going to take vouchered students that can't pay full freight? Are the private schools going to prioritize students and families that can pay the full tuition over students and families that are getting a check from the Commonwealth in voucher fashion and then asking the private school to make up the difference? The private school is a for-profit entity. Wouldn't it take little Johnny that can afford the $30,000 a year without needing scholarship money versus little Johnny that's coming to the school with $13,000 from the Commonwealth and asking the private schools to subsidize the remainder $17K? That's the problem with the eradication of public schools, is you commoditize education as opposed to making education a public utility. And when you commoditize education as opposed to making education a public utility, the rich will win. The rich will win.
Okay, so you're saying that the people who aren't rich get stuck with the subpar public schools that you've been arguing against until I brought up this hypothetical situation, and now you're saying that we need them. So I don't really know where to go with this. What do you do?
I think you pay the teachers more. You pay the teachers more. The
But
value
we're
proposition.
right back where we started.
The value proposition of teaching in the public school. If you want the public school to win, if political leaders,
They're not going to win that way.
if political leaders and
because then-
community stakeholders want the public school to win, they have to pay the teachers more than their private school competition. If they pay the
But
teachers
then they're
more than
gonna
their
run out
private
of
school
money for-
competition, they're going to have more kids stay because more talented teachers remain in the classrooms.
But then you're going to run into problems with other things that you now no longer have the money for.
That's a fair response. That's a fair response.
There's only so much money in the public. There's a reason why they don't pay teachers enough, why they don't pay bus drivers enough, why
Because they have limited money.
there isn't enough money to fix fix Burnley Moran or, whatever other school needs to be retrofitted for X, Y, and Z. I mean, I think there's a there's a deeper issue here that's more about the money that's available and less about why aren't we paying teachers more.
What do you think, viewers and listeners?
It's the same everywhere.
What do you think? Viewers and listeners, what do you think? Thoughts and comments are welcome. The feed's blowing up here. We'll get to some comments coming in. Oh man, 7 of 40 city school buses are on the roads. Carol Thorpe, Charlottesville city government yet again displays poor budgeting and planning with this busing debacle. If necessary, they could have cut money elsewhere to raise pay to attract more drivers. Now that we're here, I don't have a problem with at least high school age students who live within a reasonable distance of their schools walking. What drivers they have need to go first for the special needs short buses and those for early elementary students first. Then fill in with the youngest who live furthest away. But in summary, the city royally screwed up on this. I think that's a great comment.
I agree.
Prioritize the students. But
well,
then if you
that's not what she said.
Yes, she is.
It's much bigger than that. She was saying she was fine with high school students and the older students walking when possible, and then keeping the bus drivers. Setting them aside for specifically the
special needs and young children.
Yeah, special
That's
needs.
Prioritizing the students based on needs. Young children don't have experience walking out without their parents. Put them in a bus, please, dear God. Special needs students need more attention. Put them in a bus, dear God.
Yeah.
17-year-old Stevie and 17-year-old Sally, get them walking and get them feeling life and learning some hard lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, good night. Kevin Yancey says a dangerous intersection is Old Ivy Road. He's the king of Waynesboro.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin Yancey. Ray Cadell.
Anything on Ivy Road.
Ray Cadell is watching. He's the king of the horn. It would be great to mention that the Charlottesville Municipal Band has their 100th anniversary tonight at Ting Pavilion, and he's the guest artist. That is a great mention. Thank you, Ray Cadell. Thank you very much. Travis Hackworth watching in Danville. As an outsider who has visited several times, Charlottesville has the unfortunate fate of being a very small, compact area per square mile compared to other cities in Virginia. That makes it extremely difficult transportation-wise and effective design for good pedestrian flow and safety. It reminds me of Wars Road in Lynchburg. Travis Hackworth, well played. Yeah! Neil Williamson, great question from Neil Williamson. Will snow days increase or decrease with more students walking? That's a great question.
I don't think it had much of an effect in Maine.
Snow days, we will have more of them now. Okay, here's a better question. 7 of 40 school buses are on the road in Charlottesville City Public School System currently. You're asking more students to walk to school than ever before. Will we see days of school canceled because of extreme heat, because of torrential downpour, or because of just the threat of snow?
Most likely.
Right?
I mean, is that really, that's not really necessarily a terrible thing.
Except if your mom and dad both work jobs and you have to figure out childcare on a Wednesday during the work week.
Yeah.
And then mom and dads are screwed because son just had his school canceled because it's 103 degrees with humidity and little Johnny has to walk down High Street and play Frogger with some Mack trucks before he can get to an elementary school. The school system sees 103 degree temperatures. Damn it, school's canceled. Little Johnny's going to the copier room with mommy at the accounting firm.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but like the northern quarter of America.
This isn't the north. What applies
I don't
to
care.
Maine does
The
not
point-
apply to Central Virginia.
Okay, fine.
How can you say
Boo-hoo.
students walk in Maine, they should walk in Central Virginia?
I'm not
Drivers are good on the road in Maine, they're bad, they should be good in Central Virginia. That's what you're saying.
No.
Then what are you saying?
I'm saying that people have dealt with these problems for as long as there have been kids walking to school.
That's exactly what I just said. You're saying if they can do it in Maine, they should be able to do it in Central Virginia.
They do it in Central Virginia.
No.
We have snow days.
They cancel they cancel school at the drop of a hat here. They don't in Maine.
Okay.
I mean, you know
So
that's true.
so you're saying that Virginians can't handle it.
They're
All right.
soft. We know Virginians are softer than Maine. What's the description for the state? If you live in Maine, is it Mainers? It's Virginians here.
Maniacs.
It's called maniacs?
Or Manas.
What is it called?
Manas.
Okay, I didn't know those terms. We'll call them maniacs. We'll call them maniacs.
Sure.
We know the maniacs are better in the snow than the Virginians.
I mean, if
Their
you're,
name are maniacs.
I mean, if your only argument is that parents will be inconvenienced, okay. I mean, it's kind of a sad argument.
Well, I mean, you're not a parent, obviously.
No, I'm not.
I mean,
and
I can
get
tell
it,
you
but-
how difficult it is bringing
Okay.
your kid to work,
I mean, if
and I'm the boss.
if everything we did was based around how it inconvenienced the majority of people, it's kind of a poor metric, I feel.
Georgia Gilmer says the corner of Greenbrier by the school is a little precarious, and Rose Hill and Rugby are a little precarious. Rose Hill and Rugby aren't that precarious. I mean, I respect that comment, though. I certainly respect that comment. All right, we got Alex Erpy coming up here in a matter of moments. Before we do, we need to get to a couple topics here. Alex, we're a little behind. We apologize. Travis Hackworth sent us this. If you want to go back to the one shot, we'll talk chicken wings with Alex. I want your take on the best chicken wings in town. Get you thinking. So we'll save chicken wings when Alex gets here. One shot me, two other items out of the notebook if we could. This is from Travis Hackworth. Travis, you make this show better, dude. I respect and appreciate you. Ooh, you sent me the link. Excellent. The URL is GoSouthernVirginia.com. GoSouthernVirginia.com. It's a regional alliance in Southern Virginia. The Southern Virginia Alliance. It is a success story in a joint venture partnership with Patrick County, Virginia, Pittsylvania County. I'm relaying a few of these from the marketing collateral. Patrick County, Danville, a number of jurisdictions in southwestern Virginia. They've created this brand called SOVA, the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance. The acronym is SOVA. Look, this really has got me thinking here. If a handful of jurisdictions and cities in southwestern Virginia can get on the same page and form the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance, SOVA, to drive tourism engagement in southwestern Virginia, a forgotten portion of the Commonwealth, please, dear Lord, answer me why Central Virginia's transportation systems can't get on the same page and unify under one brand. You got 6 or 7 different jurisdictions in southwestern Virginia unifying themselves under the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance brand, SOVA, yet we have splintered public transportation systems all over Central Virginia. Explain that to me. That makes no common sense. Props to the Southern Virginia Regional Alliance, the SOVA brand. I have a feeling you're going to be attracting a lot of tourists to that portion of southwestern Virginia, especially as cost of living gets out of control in Northern Virginia, Central Virginia, and the Tidewater area. Last topic before Alex Erpy. This is Alex, off the top of your head, is Apple, from a market capitalization standpoint, the top dog out there? Apple's got the largest market cap, right?
I believe so.
I think it does too.
I believe so.
Apple, the largest market cap. Apple today announces that it's laying off 100 contract recruiters. Now, when you say 100 people, that's no big deal, except the contract recruiters are the people that hire for the positions. So they're laying off 100 gatekeepers, the people that determine the hirees. So when Apple says we're laying off 100 recruiters, really, that's thousands of people that are not going to get jobs at Apple because the recruiters are the headhunters that find the talent to work at the largest or highest market cap company in the world. That is a sign, yet another one, of a changing job market and how the employer is getting the leverage where just 6 months ago, the employee had all of it. Let's get the king of finance himself, the Antonio Banderas of finance, a man that very capably can navigate balance sheets and P&Ls and indices and understanding the finance markets, to chitter-chattering about goobers, poetry, writing, and finding ladies on Catholic Match. Alex Erpy, just a phenomenal human being on the show today. My friend, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jerry. Good afternoon, Judah. How you guys doing?
We are great. You make the show better every Tuesday. We love you.
Thank you. Love being on. Love being on.
I want your take on the public school thing. 7 of 40, and I'm catching you completely off guard here. 7 of 40 city school buses are on the road. That's less than 20%.
Wow. It seems to me that is in many ways a great logistical error. It's surprising to me, given how much this country, and including this area, spends per student, per capita, on the public school system, right? It's difficult for me, and just so you know, I'm not sure where, in terms of teacher pay, private school teachers actually on national average get paid less than public school teachers.
By a nominal amount.
The gap it can be as high as 10,000.
I can find that exact
year.
number for you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not convinced that the loss, I suspect that the difficulty in finding teachers is a difficulty in finding teachers, period, not a difficulty because teachers are leaving the public school system to go to the private school system. That I would expect to see a reverse in other words, private school pay would have to be higher than public school pay unless there is a complete environmental change. In other words, the environment is so much better that they would leave there. There's just a lot going on in the public school system. I think a lack of efficiency is probably a lot of what we are seeing there. As administrative portions of, and again, the administrative percent that public schools spend on administrative versus teacher pay, has it increased as a percent of total budget? I think the issue is as the total budget increases, there is a greater risk. In other words, as the budget of a public schools goes up and up and up, the administrative costs should not be continuing to rise at the same rate. If you think about a company, right? The whole point of a company to grow, if every company that grew saw its fixed costs increase equal to its rate of growth, every company would be out of business. If your fixed cost, Jerry, to run I Love CVille increased proportional to your budget, you would have been out of business long ago because your variable costs already increased. In other words, hiring more people, adding the things that you need to do more shows, etc. If your fixed costs, your administrative costs to do your accounting was rising proportional to the size of your budget, you're in big trouble. So it's stunning to me that 30, 40 years, over the past 30, 40 years, as public school budgets have increased tremendously, the administrative costs have increased proportionally. They have not gone down as a percentage of where the budget is going. And I think that is a lot of the issue that we're facing. There is just, at some point, there are so many inefficiencies, and I think we are seeing that come to a head with things like 7 out of 40 school buses.
7 out of 40.
That seems to me very much a matter of poor logistical planning in the way this is done. And poor logistical planning in an admittedly tough environment. They're not the only ones who can't find people. In other words, you ask the restaurant industry, they will also tell you they can't find people to do certain tasks. So it's not surprising to me that it's harder to find people. The question is, where are you prioritizing the budget that has been allocated to you? Are you using it on projects that are not necessary as opposed to things that are more necessary? What are you doing with the budget that has been allocated to you? Because you can't just keep asking taxpayers to put out more and more money if you aren't using what you've been given efficiently.
You are engaged. You will be married in the spring. Mm-hmm. You are a family man that undoubtedly has aspirations to be a father.
Absolutely.
Where will your kids go to school?
Oh, that's a good question. Part of what maybe I'm a little biased because since I was raised partially homeschool, I kind of lean towards that.
So you're going to homeschool?
Potentially. Depends
Okay.
on, obviously how things go in life. There's always monkey wrenches, I'm sure, right? And things that you have to challenge. But I think I lean towards that just because of how much I valued the positive experience of being able to learn. And I did do both. I did do 5 years of public school before I went into homeschool and middle school. And I just really enjoyed the curriculum and the ability to learn at my own pace much more so.
The advantage of
in the
homeschooling for you, in your case, is self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're making your own
Absolutely.
schedule.
Exactly.
So you
That's
have some
helpful.
flexibility like yours truly here. Kevin Yancey says, just like the Postal Service, if FedEx, UPS, DHL had to be prepared to deliver every address in America every day, they would have gone out of business 30 years ago. Similar point to what you're making. All right, before we get off this topic, which headwind is the most impactful for public schools? Which challenge is the most significant? School bus driver shortages, teacher shortages, teacher pay or lack thereof, student enrollment dropping, the collateral damage from the pandemic, which we're still navigating, the private school voucher program that's gaining traction, and the political war ground nature of public schools. Youngkin beat McCullough in a lot of ways because of this war ground.
I think some of those are connected. I think there's probably a connection, between the political war ground and the declining the public school enrollment. There's probably a connection between declining public school enrollment and perhaps a lack of teachers. In other words, less teachers. In other words, more kids per teacher makes a poorer learning environment, makes parents try to seek other forms of education for their children. I don't think the pandemic, certainly homeschool rates increased dramatically in the pandemic. I think a lot of parents, and I think some of it was, in other words, just the difficulty of sending your kid to school. But I think some of it is, I think a lot of parents, and this probably plays into part of why Youngkin got elected, some parents probably saw for the first time what was being taught to their kids and were not happy with the curriculum. I've heard that a lot, like people that I've met that made that change, they're like, I realized my kid was actually not learning a lot in school. What was being taught once I was watching on the Zoom is like, that's not much math.
There was multiple parents, I swear this, multiple parents told me their kids in physical education during Zoom and the pandemic were sitting in front of the computer screen with their PE teacher on the other side of the screen, and he said, put the tennis ball in your left hand, throw it in front of the computer screen in the air to your right hand.
I mean, really,
Put the tennis ball in your right hand, throw it to your left hand.
I mean,
now,
really-
your point is, what else can you do?
Yeah.
yeah, what are you
That's
going to
what
do
your
with,
point
with
is.
a PE class?
But
I wasn't thinking PE, I was thinking more, in other words, parents watching math class on Zoom were sitting there saying, I don't feel like this is a rigorous enough math curriculum. And I remember one of the negative things I remember about public school, this was back in California, is, and I could never understand it when I was small, why we would always jump around the math book, right? We would do chapter 1, then chapter 20, then chapter 15, then chapter 35, and I would sit there and say, what? Why? Right? And then now that I'm older and I look back, I'm like, they knew what was going to be on the standardized test. And they would, rather than
teaching the SOLs.
They were teaching the SOLs. And the problem with that, of course, is that's not how you learn math. Math is a foundational building block. If you don't understand chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, you will be lost at chapter 15.
I remember in fifth grade or something when when they were trying to teach us fractions, I just could not wrap my head around it. For the longest time, I was getting D's, and I just could not.
You're an A+ student, Judah. Everything you do is A+ in my book.
I'm a decent student, but at one point, I just couldn't wrap my head around the math of fractions. I didn't get it. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I was in a Montessori preschool, kindergarten, whatever, and we had physical objects that we could touch that really helped show you what the math was, like a single bead versus a string of 10 beads versus a flat piece of 100 beads versus a cube of 1,000 beads. And in the Los Angeles public schools, I just couldn't grasp fractions until somebody explained it to me, and it all clicked, and everything after that was pretty easy running. but it was that moment. And like you said, you can't just like jump around because all these different mathematical principles are built on top of each other. The same with English and learning a language and anything like that. You can't just teach for a test and expect people to hold it all in and be able to plug that into something else further down the line.
We'll get to viewer and listener comments here. This is resonating. The comments are coming in faster than I can read. I'll cut to the chase here, and I know why, because this topic means something to everyone, because we can all relate, whether us personally with going through the school systems personally, or because of our children. So it's a very real topic. Amanda Burns, the administrative turnover is incredibly high. There is a lack of stability with changing philosophies during the pandemic. Coming out of the pandemic, coupled with the intricacies of living in Charlottesville, it's just too much for some of us. Vanessa Parkhill, Charlottesville City Schools don't close for weather nearly as often as Albemarle and the surrounding counties. And that's important to emphasize. This school bus driver shortage, while we're highlighting Charlottesville, also applies to Albemarle County. And the shortage may be more impactful in Albemarle County because the geographical territory is so large and vast compared to Charlottesville City. So if you're asking kids to walk in Albemarle County, they may be walking a hell of a lot further than Charlottesville City because the city's only 10.2 square miles.
Well, they may not be able to walk it at all.
Right, they may not be able to walk.
That seems, some places it must be highly unlikely.
Right, like someone who lives deep in Whitehall, or don't you live in the Free Union?
Yeah, I live out on Dartmouth. Yeah, there's no way. Like,
how far is the elementary school from there?
I think our section is the one between Barrett's and Crozet. That's where I think that area would have to. Who knows? It's got to be like 5 miles.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way you would send.
Would 7-year-old Alex be allowed to walk by Mrs. Irving in the closer?
No
Would
way.
they let you walk?
Not a chance.
Right?
Not that far. They wouldn't let me walk that far at all. But certainly not 7 miles. Who would really tell you to walk 7 miles? It's impossible.
I mean, this issue is really going to impact Albemarle County, and maybe we should have led with Albemarle County. The reason we led with Charlottesville was because we have the actual statistic of 7 of 40 buses on the road. That's why we led with Charlottesville. Let's go with Vanessa again. Vanessa Parkhill's got a lot on this. Private school teachers typically have more autonomy, no SOLs, for example, higher number of engaged, supportive parents in much smaller class sizes versus public school. If a teacher can be flexible on the pay, I'm sure those intangible factors would make it worth it for them. Great comment from Vanessa.
That's a great comment. That would be where I think the competition is more likely to happen. In other words, it's probably not the salary scale, but
she's talking quality of life.
Quality of life, exactly.
Yeah. And she says, for Judah, education with public dollars is good. Please give families the opportunity to choose the best educational experience for their child. That's also a good idea.
Speaking of the voucher,
just to be
system.
clear, I wasn't seriously advocating for getting rid of all public schools. Just based on the way the conversation was going, I felt like that putting out that hypothetical was an interesting question to ask.
MJ Arquette, the queen of marketing. Then we'll go to Alex Herpy. She shares a link on the I Love Seville group. I Love Seville Facebook page, not group. The show airs on 15 Facebook pages. The I Love Seville Facebook fan page. She shares a link. Here's a great resource for pay. Virginia needs to work on this. We're in the middle from a pay standpoint. My husband is an educator and has been an administrator and teacher. He currently teaches 7th grade at Lakeside Sutherland. So we talk about this a lot, especially since we're from New York and the pay is quite higher. And that's a statewide union, not just New York City pay. My wife's family's from Long Island. Teachers on Long Island are making bank. They're unionized. Now, the locals on Long Island have to pay for the teachers to make bank, and the taxes on housing are astronomical on Long Island. The teachers are paid well, but as a result, the taxes on real estate are out of this world expensive. That's one of the collateral damages of raising teacher pay, which Judah highlighted. If you want teachers to get paid more, it's Alex, Judah, me, Carol, Vanessa, MJ, Janice, Neil. They're going to pay for it.
Well, and the teachers themselves, if they're assuming they're living in the actual county in which they're living in the jurisdiction which they're teaching.
Or take it a step further. If we put our son in private school, our tax dollars are paying public school. And if we then go the private school route for kindergarten, we're paying school twice.
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
Not quite twice, but
I mean, pretty much.
you're paying your fair share of the public school cost, and you're paying the full cost of
Private school.
where you want to send your kid.
I mean, that's a lot. We got some fans watching the program. Hello, guys. Good to see you guys watching the show.
Wow.
Jump in here, Alex Irby.
And I think that, I mean, to Judah's point, I was thinking a little bit of when I was in the green room part over there about Judah's point with regard to the public school. And I think it's not so much, I agree with him, it's not so much that you advocate for the end of public school. But in many ways, what I suspect needs to happen is public schools need to feel a little bit of an existential threat. And what I mean by that is, if you think about a small business, if
Here's the
I
free market take.
don't feel a sense of competition,
Yeah.
I have no incentive to change my ways. If I'm inefficient, if I don't spend the money that I'm allocated well, if my cost per student is extremely high, yet the quality of the educational output I'm putting out there is not keeping up with the cost per student. If I'm a monopoly and I have no competition, I have zero incentive. They have studied this. They have found economists that monopolies tend to be laggards. They tend to become very inefficient. They tend to offer very poor product given the price they are charging. Why? Because there's no competition. So to the extent that public schools can feel a little bit of pressure to say, we are losing students to private school. There might be a new voucher system out there that would allow some parents to take their kids and put them in a program.
We better innovate.
We'd better innovate. In other words, we need to look at the ways we are, perhaps even the ways we are treating our teachers, to Vanessa Parkill's point, right? In other words, our pay is not the issue, right? Teachers may be leaving the public school to go to private school to receive less money. Why? In other words, what do we need to do with the quality of life that we are offering our teachers? What are we asking them to do? What kind of classrooms are we putting them in? What kind of positions are we putting them in? How are we treating them? In other words, what do we need to do to be more competitive, in other words, to improve our product, which is, in the case of the public school system, the product is the educational output of how you are teaching kids,
Yeah.
children, how their education level is increasing. In other words, what do we need to do to improve our product so that it is, in fact, so that parents, rather than saying, I have no choice but to stick with this public school, sit there and say, what do I want to send my child
Great
to
point.
this public school because of the quality of education that they will receive there.
Very well said. So I'll ask the parents that are watching this show, moms and dads, even if your kid is out of school, how do you characterize the education your son or daughter is earning right now at a public school? How do you characterize it? Put your thoughts in the feed. If you want me to use your comments and anonymity, I'm happy to do that as well. Amanda Burns makes the quick point about the New York teacher comment. Amanda Burns says, you need a master's degree to teach in New York, so please keep that in mind.
In other words,
It's a more sophisticated teacher.
well, and you have paid more to now receive a higher pay. In other words, master's degrees, for the most part, they are not, unlike the PhD programs, master's degrees are expensive. You usually don't receive a stipend and the, it's not called fellowship, but what you receive, in other words, sometimes if you're accepted into a PhD program, your tuition is essentially covered by being virtue of accepted. Master's degrees, for the most part, that is not the case. You're talking sometimes a $40,000, $50,000 per year education expense that you have incurred, and now, of course, you're getting compensated more highly as a public school teacher. But as I said, if you are living in the same place where you are a public school teacher, some of your increased pay is being taken away in the form of higher property taxes.
Well said. Alex Irby, you have a comment specifically for you from Carol Thorpe, the Queen of Jack Jewett. To Alex's point, the voucher system would create the competition wherein the cream of the public schools would rise to the top and the worst would fail and close.
Well, they only fail and close if they refuse to
If they
change.
run out of
In
state
other
funding.
words, well, if they run out of state funding, but also if they refuse, right? In other words, if they are unable and unwilling to improve the quality of what education is being offered, right? I mean, that's kind of what I experienced. So I did experience the homeschooling I did in California was a charter school system, right? So you would have new schools that would arise in California. This is California in the 2000s, so it's not back, in the 80s when California voted for Ronald Reagan or anything. You know what I mean? It's
This
not
is
like
a
it was,
young man right here. Alex.
It's not like it was some deep
I'm
red.
feeling attacked here. I'm feeling attacked here.
Oh, because
No,
Alex just aged Judah over there.
didn't mean to age you, Judah. I was just thinking, in other words, this wasn't like California as some deep red state to try and,
Right.
to wipe out the public school system, right?
I understood what you
In other words, this was California trying to figure out ways to improve the public school system. And what would happen is charter schools would arise to fill the gap that took place if a public school was unwilling or unable to improve the quality of what it was offering.
Very well said. Amanda Burns makes the comment, and I think we're all in agreement with this. I truly think the teachers are doing the best they can given the circumstances and environment they are in. 100%. And I don't think either of us on this talk show are knocking
No.
the teachers in any way. We, if anything, are championing and supporting the teachers and saying, let's help them. Let's resource them.
It's like any business, you
Teaching
need-
is a calling. I
Yeah.
don't think most teachers. Well, I think somebody made the point in the comments that teachers don't become
Going to
teachers.
get rich.
Yeah.
That's not why they're teaching.
Right.
Well, and like any business, you need to put your employees in a position to succeed. In other words, you should have the 50 best, your school should have the 50 best teachers in terms of talent in the entire state of Virginia. If you are putting them in a position to fail, they will not do well. If, in other words, if you give them terrible working conditions, give them 100 students in each class. No, I'm just throwing numbers out. In other words, if you put them in a position to fail, then the fact that they are great teachers will become irrelevant at some
Yeah.
point.
Well said.
Amen. And that's the same in any industry.
Same in any industry. If you by your administration and by the logistics you use and by the way you use your resources, put your employees in a position to fail, then it doesn't matter whether they're actually good employees or not.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very well said. Carol Thorpe, you're making the show better today. I want to emphasize that you are making the show better today, Carol Thorpe. Neil Williamson has shared 2 very good links in the comment section on my personal Facebook page. This show airs on 15 Facebook pages. I would toggle over to my personal Facebook page and look at the comment section where the king of content, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum, Neil Williamson, has shared multiple links. And on that note, it's fundraising time for the Free Enterprise Forum. Donate and support Neil Williamson and the Free Enterprise Forum. He's raising funds right now to cover the overhead for the year. He's a valuable community resource, the Free Enterprise Forum. Amanda Burns absolutely agrees with the panel on what we're talking from a teacher standpoint and from an education standpoint. We'll go to different topics here because we have Alex to about 1:44 because we have to leave ample time, roughly 32 seconds before our 1:45
For the
conference
classic
call.
conference call,
Okay, our 1:45 conference call on Tuesday. We generally leave 32 seconds of transitionary time here as Alex is putting out the door. Let's talk markets anywhere you want to go. Dude, the last 30 days for a lot of us has been green, 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 green. I'm seeing the last 30 days for my particular portfolio, 6.2% return over the 30-day period. Still down double digits for the year.
Still down double
Yeah.
digits for the year. And that may end up being the case. In other words, Nicholas at Emergent Financial Services, he did a study, my brother, and realized and found that in some of the worst times when you've had a massive drop in the first 6 months of the year, stock market wise, many times the second half of the year will actually be positive. You will still end the year negative. In other words, it's not as though the second half will outweigh the green of the second half will outweigh the bear market in the first half. But you will begin to see some turnaround just because markets, they do not go continually down forever. In other words, the downward trajectory of markets is not the natural trajectory, right? We're human beings, we innovate, we create new companies, we grow, population is, at least in the United States, still increasing. In other words, the natural trajectory is up. So it's temporary things that bring down the markets. I think some of what we're seeing in this particular market is the fact that recession is upon us. I think the market is looking at that and saying the Federal Reserve may not be as aggressive in hiking rates as they would have been in the absence of recession, right? And I think for the market, that's always a plus. The market, the way the stock market works right now, it very much, you could say it's addicted to, I think you could safely say it's addicted to the free money that the Federal Reserve puts out. In other words, the low rates, it's the ability to borrow at low rates and put the money back into your own stock. And I think the market always responds positively to the notion that the Federal Reserve will either decrease rates or, in this case, will not increase rates as much as previously expected. And that's, I think, part of what is driving the market improvement. Because, as you're saying, we are seeing a slowdown in housing. We are seeing
Freight rates have dropped.
freight rates.
We saw that.
We are
Inventories.
definitely inventories peaking, right?
Yeah.
We are seeing
It seems
a
like it's
slowdown in
peaking.
hiring.
Yeah, right.
You know, and not just a slowdown. I think you're arguing in the tech. We're seeing the threat of layoffs in hiring. The Apple news, of course. In other words, if you are firing 100 recruiters, that's a lot
That's a
of
lot.
people. Each one recruiter, remember, is responsible for hiring a lot of people. It's
That's
not a
their job.
one-to-one.
Yeah.
In other words, that's not 100 people you are laying off. That, in other words, you intend not to hire 1,000 or more.
Right.
Right? Because there's probably good
And
chance
that's probably
that
conservative.
and that's conservative. That's assuming one recruiter is there to get you 10 employees.
Right.
Right? So we're in the midst of that. You would sit there and say, given all that, why on earth, why would the market go up? And I think it's because the market is saying, given those conditions, we may not be looking at 8+ rate hikes. We may be looking at fewer from
Right.
the Federal Reserve.
Very well said. I mean, is the million dollar question you get constantly, are we at peak inflation?
Maybe, oof.
You don't have a crystal ball, I get that.
I don't have the crystal ball there. I think I think we're starting to see the end in terms of inflation going higher. I think the concern that I am
the
seeing
prices
right
aren't gonna
now
go down.
is, in other words, do we sit at a plateau of inflation? In other words, the issue is, and remember, inflation is the increase in prices. If inflation peaks at 6% year over year, let's say,
That means you're still getting more inflation.
that means in prices are increasing by 6% based on the previous year every single month. They're increasing, whatever it takes to maintain that. That means prices are still going up. So a plateauing of the inflation rate is not good enough. A plateauing of the inflation rate is still devastating.
We want zero inflation.
Exactly.
Not less inflation than we had last month.
You remember, 0% inflation, right, means that the high price level we are seeing now stays. A 6% inflation, in other words, a steady inflation rate of 6% means prices are going up still. That is devastating for the average person. In other words, continued high inflation. That's why this past month's number, even though 8.5% was better than 9%, right? That still means the prices are going up.
Yeah.
That's not an improvement of the situation. It's an improvement in the sense of it could have been worse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? But it is still a very devastating number.
Definitely.
For the average family. In order for people to begin going out there, being able to spend it and to regain their purchasing power, inflation needs to come back down to zero at this high
I'll
price
ask a
level.
very straightforward question here. Will the prices drop?
Will the prices drop?
Or are these just the prices now?
I think these are just
the prices.
I think these are just the prices now. The prices dropping would mean that we are looking at a recession lasting 1 to 2 years.
And neither you nor I think that's going to happen.
I would hope that doesn't happen.
Okay,
we have,
so-
we have
so-
other issues if that happens.
So then we have the circumstances we're in. The prices are not going to drop. These are the prices, and we just have to suck it up and take it that it's 6 to 8% more expensive year over year.
Yeah, what should eventually happen that you would hope for, in other words, the prices have risen, the wages finally managed to catch up, you're at a new price level, but at least you're being compensated to spend at this new price level, and now you're kind of in the same boat that you were before. In other words, a year ago, you were able to buy 2 pizzas based on how much income you brought in, and I think we'll be in a happy point if you reach the point where you can then buy 2 pizzas given how much income you're bringing in. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's
in other
very
words,
well
your
said.
purchasing power has recovered. That is, I think, what we want to see. Right now, we are not seeing that. In other words, people are seeing less purchasing power. You can't afford to buy 2 pizzas anymore. You have to buy 1 pizza. It is the equivalent of what we're seeing.
Very well said. Judy, anything you want to add before we go today, Manana? First, we got to talk chicken wings.
I mean, this is what's been happening for decades. This is the reason why younger people are choosing to co-buy homes with their friends rather than start families because the purchasing power has been so eroded over the last few decades that it's just, it's getting harder to live.
Non-existent.
It's getting harder to live.
Non-existent. Judah Wickower is the jack of all wit.
He's exactly right.
A+ people.
Great
Judah
point.
Wickower. Chicken wings, 2 minutes, 45 seconds a person over here. Best chicken wings in town. You guys want to start? You want me to throw some ideas out? You want to go first, Alex?
I don't know. To be honest, the best I've tasted
I
at this
know who you're
point.
gonna say, but go
At this point, I've tasted. I've had your usual chain ones. I've tasted one that was on the corner. The best that I've had was the one I just recently had last week. I had the chicken wings from Dino's Pizza.
Oh, wow. I didn't think you were going to say that.
They were
Okay.
so good.
Can I tag Dino and say you're giving him props?
Tag
All right,
him.
I'm going to do it right now.
Because I went there for pizza, and my brother Nick, we were just handing out the
Nick's watching. What's up,
He
Nick?
ordered the chicken wings. They were so good, like super crispy, and whatever dry rub he put on them was fantastic. So to be honest, that's the best I can remember having in Charlottesville. I don't know if I've tried everywhere, but that's the best I can remember.
So, do I have your permission to do this? Dino, I'm tagging Dino. I'm saying, Dino, hey, our homie Alex Herpy says Dino's restaurant has the best chicken wings in Central Virginia.
That's the best that I've had.
So I can tag him and
Yeah,
send it?
tag him, tell him
Just
that.
tag him and send it. Judah Wickower, you jump in here. Dino's wings are damn good. I've had Dino's as well. It's in Dairy Market. His wings are fantastic. I love a good wing with a dry rub where you crack into it. There's some crunch on the
Exactly.
outside, but the interior meat is moist and not dried out on the outer layer dryness.
Exactly.
That's critical for the chicken wing. Judah, thoughts?
I've got to agree. Crunchy on the outside, tender and juicy on the inside. I actually prefer ranch, though I will choose blue cheese occasionally. Blue cheese is more typically my dad's choice.
Okay, so ranch.
Your dad is a wise man.
You're a blue cheese guy?
I love blue cheese.
Celery sticks?
Oh, anything.
Definitely.
Anything with it? I'll take
Anything.
the celery sticks too. I'm going to go ranch like Judah. Where's your number one? And if you don't want to pick one, you can pick a few if you want. If you have a backup option you can throw, please do. Janice says South and Central has good chicken wings.
Oh, I haven't tried theirs
It's a
yet.
good tip, Janice. I
I'll have to
mentioned
try
this on
that.
air. Judah.
I've got to give the wings there a try, but I don't think I've found a favorite since going to since my favorite used to be Wild Wing.
And the train station.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're to be determined. Janice
Yeah.
also says Iron Pipe in Orange County has fantastic
Oh,
wings.
that's a
Great
Iron
comment.
Pipe.
I mentioned. Go ahead, Alex.
What about you, Jerry? What are you partial to?
I concur with what he said. In my top 5 is Dino's Dairy Market. Those are fantastic wings. My top wings in town, if you like your wings smoked wings, Moe's Barbecue on Ivy Road.
Oh, okay.
If
Yes.
you like them smoked.
Yes.
The smoked flavor is different. It's a different way of cooking
It's a
them.
different thing.
Not everyone likes smoked wings. If you like smoked wings, that's the best wing in town. Moe's on Ivy
Yeah.
Road. My second favorite wing in town, and I thought you were going to say this, is Chim on 5th Street Station.
I didn't know Chim had.
Because I know you go there.
I go there. I
Yeah.
usually get like the noodles, and I didn't know. I
Yeah.
forgot they had chicken
I
wings.
think it's a 3 or 5 piece
Oh.
appetizer. The chicken wings at J. Pun's Chim are dynamite.
Oh, I gotta try that.
Absolutely dynamite. So those are 3 very legitimate options for you. If you like smoked wings, Moe's on Ivy Road. If you prefer wings not smoked, Dino's at Dairy Market or Chim on 5th Street Station are absolutely dynamite. And like Judah, I'll go with ranch and celery sticks as well. Judah, what's on
Yeah.
that brain?
Well, I think, I think on the way home today, I got to stop and get some Dino's wings, and then after that, I got to stop and get some Goobers.
There you go. Oh,
145. Oh no,
we didn't get the
145.
Goobers.
Jamie Turner second, South Central. Jamie Turner concurs with Janice saying South and Central are very good. Alex Herpy, I just looked at the clock. Today, Emiliano.
Super quick. So today, Manana, we're going to have on Brittany Tobbs. She's the owner of Baked on the James.
Oh,
So
very nice.
Yes, the cupcakes and everything she bakes. The cinnamon rolls look fantastic.
Dino
We're
is
super
watching.
excited.
He's just said thank you to you.
Oh, of course.
Say something to Dino.
Dino, glad you're watching. The chicken wings were delicious. So was the pizza.
Okay.
We had the one with the fresh mozzarella and like the spicy honey on it. Oh, it was out of this world.
So I just tagged Philip Dow of Scottsville to let him know Baked on the James will be on Today
Baked on the
Emiliano
James.
this Thursday.
It's going to be on Today Manana this Thursday.
Okay, you were phenomenal.
No, you don't love being on. Love being on.
Seriously.
We gotta get the goobers for next time.
Yeah, we need the goobers. I thought the goobers were going to be here.
I will bring them. I will bring them next
You're gonna do it?
Tuesday. I will
Okay.
bring them.
For viewers and listeners, the goobers are coming next Tuesday, courtesy of the Erpy family.
Yeah, and I promise not to taste any beforehand,
We
so
will
that
do
my
a
first
blind-
time will be on air.
Well, on air. Fantastic. Judah Wickower, Jerry Miller, Alex Erpy, Henry Buffalo, Dino says.
Henry
Buffalo is what you had.
Yes, that's exactly what I had. It was delicious.
Henry Buffalo, and he says we have more existing news as well. Wow, he's about to break some news here. All right, that's the show. I'm literally 1 minute late for a conference call right now with a VIP client. Thank you for joining us on the I Love Seville show. Watch Today in Manana Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love Seville network. Alex Erpy is phenomenal. Judah Wickower as well. Philip Dow says he's going to be watching you now, as will
Awesome.
Scottsville on Today in Manana. That's the show. So long, everybody. Thank you for watching. Judah, call right now. Alex,
Go.
crushed it very well.
Thank you. Lots of fun. Good luck on the draw.